Welcome back to Sidebar Social. I'm Jennifer Grinke.
And I'm Dana Stewart. All right, what are we talking about today?
Something really exciting.
Okay, what's that?
My goldfish.
Your goldfish. You don't have a goldfish?
It's gone.
Okay, what's that? That's a beta fish, first of all. This is what a bad pet owner you are. You don't even know what you have in your house.
The fish is gone.
Are you for real? Like the way the second one disappeared?
No. It's alive. I told my daughter if she gave the fish away that she could take horseback riding lessons. So she gave it away to our nanny.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so is the nanny keeping it in your house or her house?
Her house. She took it home.
So it's totally gone?
She's gone.
Oh, I bet you're so happy.
So happy.
Yeah, Jen's not for those at home who don't know, not necessarily a lover of all the animals. Yeah, you're no Noah, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So beyond your pets, what else are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about supervised visitation.
What does that mean?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a quiz.
It's basically the type of visitation I needed with the fish.
Right. You did need a supervisor. Okay.
I did.
So in the family law world, for those that don't know, oftentimes we have cases where there is a potential risk to a child or children being around a parent or a custodian. And so that's where we get into the world of supervised visits, where there's a professional company or person that will be with that parent and the child or children to make sure that the child or children are safe, right?
Yes.
And you want to talk about our interesting connection with one of our employees in that world?
Yeah. So we actually have an attorney at our office, Hannah Salinas. So we love, hey, Hannah. And her family was one of the original founders of Hannah's House. And so that is a supervised center that was kind of one of the first of its kind in the area. But it was a safe place for kids to have visits with a parent or a custodian who necessarily otherwise wouldn't have gotten the visitation.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept. And it's very much needed. And then Hannah's House is not really around now. Well, Hannah lives in our house now.
Yeah.
Workouts, right? But yeah. So that kind of ties into our guest. So today we actually have a friend of ours who is the owner of a supervision company called Keeping the Peace, LLC, and also happens to be the bailiff of the 417th Judicial District Court in Collin County, Texas. So I'd like to welcome Rick Willey to our podcast. Hello, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I guess let's just maybe start off with, obviously, how long have you been let's start about this. How long have you been a bailiff?
I've been a bailiff for 20 years, been in law enforcement for 29 years.
Okay. What got you into the world of being a bailiff?
My original goal was to go back out to the street and work the street, but I got with my judge and I couldn't leave her.
Yeah.
I couldn't ask for a better, ask for a better judge. I had a young child at the time, working Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 was a good gig for law enforcement. So I stayed with her, and then I decided there's no way I could leave her.
Did you know that Jen's dad was a cop? So
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
She grew up in a cop family.
So you understand.
I get it. Yeah.
And so then you're working as the bailiff. At what point did you decide that you were interested in doing running a separate company for the supervised visits? Like, how did that come to fruition?
I wasn't ready. I wasn't wanting to. My wife is an attorney. She does family law and mediation, primarily mediation now. And during COVID, she asked me to do a supervised visitations for one of her clients. And I told her, no, I'd rather pull out my own teeth. And she said, you will do it. And I said, yes, honey.
Anyone who knows your wife can see that happening too. Yeah.
So I did it, and I made a lot of mistakes. And I just got to thinking that, hey, I'm helping making sure the child is safe, seeing their other parent. And it kind of gave me a good feeling. So I got another case from Ms. Grinke. And it was an interesting case. And I was hired as security, not as supervision.
Okay.
And there was another company doing the actual supervision. And the child was very, very scared of the non-custodial parent, the mom. Mom had a few quirks, but what the supervisor at the time would allow mom to do, I was aghast. I could not believe that they would allow those things to happen. So I just started taking notes of what I would not do. And then I looked at some other companies. And so ultimately, I started my own company. I thought I'd make a couple extra $1,000 a month for doing visitation just as a side job. But as I got going, I got busier and busier and busier. So I had to bring somebody else on. And then about 6 months in, I decided I had to form an LLC. Started that. Then I started bringing on 3, 4. Now I have 14 supervisors that work for me.
Wow. And you're actually one of the largest supervision companies in Texas. Is that right?
I believe I am the largest. A lot of companies won't give out their numbers, but I believe I am the largest.
All right. So with your company, Keeping the Peace, all of your supervisors are licensed peace officers, correct?
They're either off duty or retired.
Okay. And so talk to
Maybe you could give my dad a job.
I
Yeah.
would. I would have to
Good.
talk to them. I'd have to get to know them. I just don't let anybody work for me.
Okay.
You'd have to give up the wine tour.
The wine tour. Right now he does wine tours
Oh, where's he at?
in California.
Oh, I'm not starting out in California.
Yeah.
That's a little far.
Yeah.
Not yet, but
You're getting there.
I talked to my wife about going globally, and she said no.
all right. Well, hi Hannah, by the way, if you're watching. So how has it been? You said so you have 14 that you have on your staff.
Yes.
So how has that been kind of working with your employees, kind of trying to shape your vision and training them? Talk to us about that.
I have a very strict set of rules that I make my supervisor adhere the parents to. I have a very high standard. I pay them well, so I expect a high quality of service. I don't play. Y'all have seen me in the courtroom. I am no fuss, no muss. Same with my supervision. We have these parents' most precious commodity, their kids, that they're entrusting us to keep them safe. And that's what our job is. So I'm very particular in who will work for me. Fortunately, I have a great group of people. I could not do this myself without them because of what they bring to the table. I have certain supervisors that are better at more physical activities. I have one supervisor, they did a 20-mile hike with the kids and dad.
Wow.
I wouldn't do a 20-mile hike. Sorry.
Follow us and join the conversation on Instagram and YouTube at Sidebar Social.
So it's just the supervisors that come to me are handpicked, and they have the traits that I want in a supervisor. Because one is they're all parents. So we all have kids, and we understand it is difficult sometimes to have kids, and kids can be difficult. But also I want to make sure that the supervisor understands that the parents can parent their child. Because if you can parent a child in supervision, that's good parenting. I have some parents that will not supervise their kids on bad behavior. And I'd let them know, you need to take care of the child appropriately.
So one of the things that I like about your company versus other supervisors that we've worked with is you guys actually keep a pretty detailed log of what goes on during the visits, whereas not all supervisors do. I mean, I know we've had that where you ask the supervisor, how'd it go? And like, oh, it's fine. I mean, we don't have any information on that, but I like the way that your company does it. I think it helps us gather a more accurate idea of what really is happening each of those visits. So is that something that you did by design, or is that just accident? How'd that come to fruition?
How I started doing it is by necessity. I cannot make recommendations. I can only make observations. So I don't say a child is happy. I say a child is smiling and laughing, because I am not a mental health professional to say somebody is happy. So what I do is we write it down what the action is. So we don't say, well, dad got mad at the visitation. What does that mean? Dad showed anger on his face. He spoke abruptly and curtly to the child. So that we have to explain it a little bit more, because we can't say the child's happy.
When you mentioned earlier that, some of your supervisors are on 20-mile hikes, they've, seen this child and this family over time. Can you describe kind of like what's the relationship like sometimes between the supervisor and the family?
A lot of times the kids become attached to us. I've known as Uncle Rick or Uncle Brian, one of my other supervisors. We kind of blend into the family. We don't want the kids to know that we're police officers. We just want them to think we're a friend of the families.
Yeah.
So we really dress down for our visitations. We may be wearing shorts, a ball cap, so we don't look like these big scary police officers. We are human. And we're
Mhm.
just there to help out with the visits. When I was doing a lot of visitations, I would have a 3-year-old crawl up in my chest and fall asleep for his naps. There were a lot of kids in that visitation, and we just become part of the family almost. We're
Yeah.
not. We have to stay in our lane, we have to stay in our position, but the kids learn to accept us. What I find one of the most amazing things is when we take the kids from the custodial parent and bring them to the non-custodial parent, the kids don't squawk. They don't get
Wow, that's
upset
a
that
big
they're
deal.
leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the itty bitties, the
Mhm.
little babies, they don't get upset because I tell the custodial parent that if you're okay with us taking your child's okay with us taking them.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, okay, question for you. I know your wife does work as an amicus attorney,
Yes.
and I do as well. And just like what you're saying, there's an attachment to the kids that you work with.
Mhm.
And I'm curious because I've had this where I start to see that the kid may be struggling or there's something going on, a weird dynamic with a child and a parent. I'm wondering if you ever see that or if you ever think, hey, is this kid going to counseling or is there play therapy involved? Does that ever come up?
Quite often. During supervised visitations, it's usually for a certain length of time. And as it gets going, we generally see the kids' behavior get better. Um, Sometimes we don't see the parents' behavior ever getting better.
Yeah,
But generally, we see in the kiddos, their behavior will get better. And, if it's 3, 4 months into a visitation and I'm not seeing the kids, I'll reach out to the attorney and say, hey, are the kids in counseling? I cannot recommend anybody to be in counseling. But if we don't see kids progressing, then something's not working well. And I'll go back
Mhm.
to the attorney and say, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, and I like that you and your team are aware of that because again, I think some companies that at least I've used in the past, it's just very much robotic and it almost like there's no human component. They're just there, they stand there, they make sure nothing bad happens, but they're not going beyond that.
It's really easy to become robotic because you're looking at a sheet of paper, you're looking at a report, you have to understand that these are actually kids that you're watching and
Mhm.
making sure that they're actually being taken care of, that they're being parented appropriately, that they're being nurtured.
To learn more about Grinke Stewart Family Law, visit GrinkeStewartLaw.com.
Rick, a lot of people are confused about what is a supervised visit. Can you break down for the viewers what a supervised visit is and what a supervised visit might look like if you're the client?
We have two people, mom, dad, custodial, non-custodial, and it doesn't matter who's who. Approximately 50% of our clients are female, which was really surprising. I didn't
Yeah, I'm
think that we would
surprised.
have that many females, but it is a way for the children to have a safe and secure visitation with the non-custodial parent.
We see a range of issues with parents that might pose a risk or some type of issue with the child by being alone with them. Can you talk about some of the risks that you see that require a supervised visitation?
We have cases that currently we have people that are sex offenders all the way down to substance abuse, people that if they weren't such an asshole, they wouldn't have supervised visitations.
Right?
True. I mean,
Right?
that's true. If they weren't a jerk, then they wouldn't have supervised visitations. So it's a broad gambit. And honestly, I don't care why somebody has supervised visitations because it doesn't change what we do for the children. We are always protecting the kids first. I have some clients, that I may like, but I don't treat them any differently because the judge or the court has said supervised visitations, this is what we have to do. This is what we're going to do. I don't change my rules for any client.
And do you see, I think normally if we've got supervised visits, it's typically for a short duration of time, couple hours, maybe 3 hours. Is that generally what you've seen with the cases you've had too?
We have cases. I currently have 3 cases right now that on first, third, and fifth, they're 9 hours.
As they're going all day.
They're going all day, Saturday and Sunday. Majority of them is 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
I think we need to progress longer. So I tell parents, the more time that we are in that life, in that visitation, we have hands on, eyes on. We can see what's happening and it's safe for the child. I have a lot of parents that don't want to do in-home visitations. And I let them know that in-home visitations, when supervised visitation goes away, it's going to be in-home.
Yeah.
So have us go in and make sure that the home is appropriate before you don't have supervised, and then the non-custodial parent can do whatever they want.
You've given us really good insight into what to put into a court order when it comes to, if we're doing supervised visits, we've got to have a court order that spells out what your role is going to be.
Yes.
And so I'd like you to share some of your insight on things that you've told us and even other attorneys that you spoke at a conference not too long ago, just helpful information that should go into a court order for parents or even attorneys that may be watching this.
There's a range of things, but the 3 most important items that we have difficulty with is who can be at visitations, what guests can be allowed. We have a lot of parents that want their parents to be there or their brother. We don't care who comes to a visitation. We just have to know, but we don't know who that parent is. We don't know if they have a bad history. So very important to know who is allowed.
Okay.
Pictures. It sounds kind of ridiculous. Why wouldn't you allow pictures? I have sex offenders on my caseload, and pictures are not good.
And just to be clear, you're talking about taking a picture with the child?
Yes. Yes. The next thing is, where can visitations happen? What is allowed? I have a lot of parents that don't want to do it at the other parent's home, but that's where, when I was talking earlier, that it's not bad to do it in the other parent's home because we get to see what's inside the home.
But would you prefer the flexibility of it could be at the home, or if they agree, the parents, to do it, elsewhere, the mall,
Park.
whatever, the park? Yeah.
So if we do an outdoor location, I always have an indoor backup location because it's Texas and the weather changes by the minute.
Right.
And the supervisor on scene is the one that gets to make that determination whether it's going to be indoor or outdoor, because we handle cases all through the Metroplex. We do Tarrant, Weatherford, Grayson County, Denton. So I'm in McKinney. I don't know what's happening. The supervisor is the one that gets to make the determination.
Have you ever had a situation where during the visit a risk is presented by the parent you're supervising?
Yes. And our actions depends on what the violation is. So if somebody's starting to talk about the divorce case,
Okay.
we'll interrupt. We try not to embarrass the non-custodial parent because we don't want to embarrass them in front of their child, but we'll get their attention and say, okay, let's talk about something else. We've had other cases where gentleman went into the bathroom and must have took some alcohol, and he came out about 20 minutes later and he was stumbling drunk.
Yeah. What do you do with that?
We terminate the visit.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to terminate because we have to keep the children safe.
Mhm.
And then we wouldn't let him drive, because if he's at the mall and he gets in his car and drives away, so we had to
Is
help.
that probably one of the most crazy stories that you've had, or is there something more juicy?
Probably one of the most craziest is I had a client that was in adult entertainment.
Okay.
And that case really helped me set up how I do my business by not allowing things to happen. It was a good lesson to hear what's happening in visitations.
Meaning not allow things to happen during the visitation because things were going on before you were involved that
Yes.
you didn't
Yes.
agree with.
I was actually hired as a security agent to watch a visitation. Another company was doing the supervised visitations.
Okay.
And I would be taking notes of why they were allowing mom to talk about these things. So I would write down what was happening. And once I started doing my company, I felt that I had to have a contract with my clients. So that's my intake form. And make sure they understand what they can do and what they can't do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like being a baby attorney sitting in the back of the courtroom and watching attorneys be like, oh, I'm not going to do it that way. Yeah.
Yes.
And speak of the courtroom, so you're a bailiff, you own keeping the peace. Those are very separate roles.
Yes.
But how, if at all, have they helped you? How has one helped you be better in the other role, if at all?
So I've been in the courtroom for 20 years. I've probably listened to thousands of divorce cases. So I see what happens on both sides. On the supervision, I know what is needed to be stopped because of what we hear about what's happening in court.
Yeah.
So you hear the horror stories of what's happening out in visitations, unsupervised visitations, in family life during divorces, just as you all hear the horror stories. And then you bring it into the supervision, and it's maybe a better supervisor because I know what is really allowed and what's not allowed.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a unique experience level that you bring to this, keeping the peace.
A different perspective.
For sure.
Yes.
To connect with today's guest, Rick Willey, check out his website, keepingthepeacellc.com.
I think we see it over and over. Someone who's in a supervised visitation situation wants to get out of it, and sometimes it's like there's no end in sight. What's your top advice for somebody in that situation to progress towards getting out of it?
Listen to your attorney.
Rick,
Because
let's
I
get
love
t-shirts
this.
made.
Yeah.
Because if the clients would listen to their attorney, they're going to direct them in the best way. Because you all are the experts on the law. I'm not.
I like it. Yeah. We could for sure get some like bumper stickers made up that says listen
To your attorney.
Yeah, that's good. So your company, just as we're bringing this podcast episode to a close, I think it's really cool because you started 3-4 years ago?
About 3 years ago.
3 years ago, and you've grown quite a bit.
Yes.
And right now you're in the DFW area.
Yes, sir.
What are the future plans as far as expansion goes?
When I retire from the county, I would like to have LLC Austin, Houston, San Antonio. But I have to retire from the county because I just can't put that much time invested in the 4 other new cities.
It's exciting though.
Yeah,
Yes,
really
it is.
exciting.
Yeah.
If my wife lets me retire, then I'll do it.
All right.
So you need to talk
Put
to
in
Hannah.
a good word.
Yeah. We'll talk to her for you. So look, Rick, thanks for coming on. Thank you for all the work you've done for helping our clients, their kids, and all the other families. You're doing great work, and we really appreciate having you as a resource, knowing that these kiddos are going to be safe when they're with you and your team.
I appreciate the opportunity just to help the kids. I don't care if the parent gets to see their child. I care about the child seeing their parent.
I like it.
Good
And that's a
perspective.
distinct difference.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a great way to end the episode. Well, thanks again for coming on. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Sidebar Social.